join me as we delve back into the history and origins of the sport of rallying. Last time we skipped through the early 20th century to find the early origins of rallying. By the 1960s, the sport was established in a format we can recognise today, with stage routes on various surfaces navigated by a driver and co-driver in the minimum time possible. This time, we enter the 1970s, the modern era, and some say the golden age of rallying. By the 1970s, the sport had various tiers, starting at locally organised rally stages, mostly featuring local small teams competing for local pride and love of the sport. On a national level, rallying would see more professional teams and the lower levels of manufacturer to team support. By the end of the 1960s, the big factory teams now dominated international events, and some of the classic European and African rallies offered unique challenges that manufacturers and drivers alike would use to build legends. The granddaddy of European events was the Monte Carlo Rally, by now on tarmac roads with snow and ice offering challenging start to the season. By now, the event would start and end in Monte Carlo, instead of being a two-part event with cars driving across Europe to reach Monte Carlo. Minis, Alpines and Lancias all made their names at the Monte Carlo Rally. The Safari Rally demanded a different kind of machine just to survive the hostile terrain. Legends here were made by big Peugeots and Citroens, as well as the factory teams from Lancia and Ford. The 1000 Lakes brought the magnificent skills of Scandinavian drivers and their cars to world attention. Saab and other teams made their name here. These international events would take place over several days and nights, the drivers taking the time stages at speed, co-drivers navigating and helping with some of the driving between stages. Sleep was in short supply for crews and their service teams, and between rallies the factory teams would recce the stages to pre-prepare pace notes. All with one notable exception. In Britain, stage rallies often saw crews taking on forest sections without pace notes. It was the ultimate challenge. As cars were now modified and tuned for the conditions, these stages would pit the wits of drivers and crews to the limit. The international rallies run in the UK would keep this format, as well as 5 days of hard day and night driving. Rallies like the Mintex grew into what was to become the traditional season-ending Lombard RAC Rally. These international classics, along with Sweden and several others, were to build up into a World Rally Championship. The marketing benefits were obvious, guaranteeing strong factory team support, and the cars were honed yet faster across all the challenges each environment would present. At the start of the 70s, Ford's Mark I Escort, Lancia Fulvias and Minis would fight it out as they had in the late 1960s. little team called Alpine launched their A110, and this made other manufacturers take notice. Roger Clark, who spearheaded the Ford Challenge with the Mark I Escorts, worked with the team on a mid-engine lightweight two-seater to challenge this new French upstart. Alpine surprised everyone using humble Renault underpinnings in their lightweight, nimble sports car. This little team beat the bigger teams to win the World Rally Constructors' Championship in 1973. Clark argued that the Escort saloon-based rally car couldn't compete with a purpose-built mid-engined racer, so the team agreed to push ahead with a mid-engined concept. Known as the GT70 as a nod to their Le Mans legend and the new decade, prototypes were built and tested by Clark with the team at Borehamwood. Lancia too took notice. Changes to the Group 4 regulations in rallying were to come into place for 1974, and a minimum of 400 cars would need to be made to comply. Low-volume cars like the GT70 suddenly looked like a tempting prospect. Lancia team boss Cesare Fiario saw the Stratos Zero concept by Bertoni and asked the design house to come up with a mid-engined rally concept. Again, the works drivers were consulted, which led to the wraparound screen and for visibility and a very short wheelbase. At Ford, the Mark II Escort was on the horizon, and after promising testing by the team and a desire by the marketing department to have a car related to the showroom products, the GT70 was canned. Whereas American company Ford had their European racing, and in particular the rally team, centralised at Borehamwood in Essex, GM, on the other hand, had two separate competing arms within Europe. On the continent, they had Opel, and in the UK, they had Vauxhall, both with a proud heritage and both trying to compete in rallying. The Opel cars and Vauxhall cars over the decade gradually came closer together in terms of platform sharing and various hard points in the bodies, but they still were separate cars, and just like the road cars, the rally teams were separate too. So whereas you would have an Opel Kadett using a very similar platform to the Chevette in the latter half of the 70s, both would be competing separately in the World Rally Championship events. And this would cause a certain amount of, shall we say, competition between the two, distracting them from the more serious opposition that they would face in the championships. By the late 70s, even GM had centralised at Opel in Germany, although many British enthusiasts mourn the glory days of Vauxhall motorsport. However, the Lancia Stratos HF was debuted at the WRC in 1974 and won the constructors' title for Lancia in 1974, 1975 and 1976. Winning its debut season in 1974 was impressive enough. To go on to help Lancia win the World Rally Championship in 75 and 76 was even more remarkable. The Stratos also won the 1974 Targa Florio, the Tour de France Automobile 5 times, and the Giro d'Italia Automobilistico 3 times. However, the Mark II Escort was indeed competitive and it dominated forest stages in events like the Lombard RAC rally in the UK. The Ford 1800 RS with its BDA engine finally won the World Constructors' Championship in 1979 after internal politics, after Fiat bought Lancia, shelved the Stratos in favour of the Fiat 131. Meanwhile, with the Mini proving to be less and less competitive, BMC, which was to become British Leyland, ended up looking gradually through their range as time went on, trying all sorts of cars to make a competitive rally car. So the Land Crab was used in events such as the African rallies, and you had cars such as the Allegro tried in rallying in that's closer to home and tarmac and gravel events. It wasn't until the TR7 in 1975 that they focused on one particular design to take their challenge forward. In 1979, it was agreed to reduce the cost to encourage more manufacturers to enter the WRC. A new formula would allow more design and engineering freedom with only 200 cars required for homologation. Ford withdrew from the WRC after winning the title in 1979 to concentrate on their Group B product. The Mark III Escort was due to be launched in 1980, so Works Mark II's winning rally stages just wouldn't suit the image. Lancia looked at the new regulations and the success they'd had with the Stratos. They also had the mid-engined Monte Carlo to promote, so they knew what to do for Group B when it was going to be launched in 1983. Peugeot had the 305 Saloon to promote. They also had the PRV V6 to play with, so they started work on something based on the 305 Saloon. Meanwhile, as the other teams were smiling to themselves knowingly and patting themselves on the back, Audi popped up and asked, "Does anyone object to four-wheel drive being allowed in World Rallying?" The other teams pictured Jeeps and Land Rovers and said, "Yeah, why not?" At the Geneva show in 1980, Audi showed a new coupe on their stand, the Quattro. Next time we enter the 1980s, Group B supercars and Group A origins. Unfortunately, devastatingly good looks are not enough to earn a living these days. Who knew? So, if you've enjoyed the video, and hopefully by the time you've reached this far, hopefully you have, why not give us a thumbs up, hit the like button, and tell your friends, share the link, tell them about the video, and better still, click on the bell. Click on the all option and you'll be told when there's new videos coming, because I promise you there's some really good content coming to this channel.